federal charges have just been announced in connection to the shooting death of an off-duty firefighter. Prosecutors say Javon Taylor had a gun that was used to kill Anthony Santi on Thursday. He's charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm. KMBC 9's Brian Johnson is joining us live from 40th and Sterling Avenue with new details on that shooting. Brian?
Yeah, Kelly, the argument began inside the store. Police say surveillance video shows Javon Taylor exits the store, gets a gun, and goes back in. Then the argument spilled out here on the sidewalk. He lost possession of the gun, and at one point, police say a woman who was with Taylor grabs the gun and fires around at the firefighter.
Around 2:30 p.m. on October 6, 2022, an unnamed woman, who we'll call Jane Doe, and her boyfriend, 23-year-old Javon Taylor, walked into a Liquorland convenience store in Independence, Missouri. While there, Javon allegedly requested a particular brand of cigars, but the female store clerk informed him that the store was out. Reportedly, that infuriated Javon, and he began arguing with the clerk. The dispute quickly escalated to yelling and cussing, until the clerk demanded that Javon and Jane Doe leave his store. They both refused, and the argument loudly continued. Around that time, 41-year-old, off-duty firefighter Anthony Santi walked into the store. The loving father and friend served with the Kansas City Fire Department for about 11 years. According to those close to Anthony, he dedicated his life to helping people, and that's why he chose a career as a firefighter and EMT. As he entered the store, Anthony heard the three people arguing and stepped in to defuse the situation. He asked Javon and Jane Doe to just leave the store. Javon became upset at the suggestion, so he began to argue with Anthony. Their argument quickly turned into a scuffle that eventually made its way outside of the store. According to the surveillance video, Javon then reached inside his white SUV and pulled out a firearm with an extended magazine. As the two continued to tussle, Javon dropped the gun, and Jane Doe picked it up. A cell phone captured the events that unfolded afterward.
Let it go! Let it go! Stop!
Cell phone video captured some of that fight between 41-year-old Anthony Santi and 23-year-old Javon Taylor.
Bro, what are you doing, bro?
Witnesses tell KMBC the fight may have lasted as long as 10 minutes.
Get out! My kids in this car! Stop! Are you killing me?
Javon Taylor's girlfriend pulled out a gun and ultimately killed Anthony Santi.
The bullet fired by Jane Doe entered Anthony in his back and pierced both his lungs and heart. After he was shot, he let go of Javon and stumbled back into the store where he collapsed. Officers rushed to the scene, but unfortunately, Anthony Santi was pronounced deceased upon their arrival. He left behind several family members, friends, and his 14-year-old daughter.
He was protecting and being the person that he is, dying. Of course he died a hero because he loved helping people.
After the shooting, Jane Doe and Javon left the scene in their vehicle.
After the woman shot Santi, court records show the two left the scene. They're accused of then going to her mom's house in Kansas City. While Independence police were still on scene, the woman and her mom came back and she was arrested at the gas station. At that time, it was determined Taylor was just across the street in a different car at the Quick Trip.
Both Jane Doe and Javon were then arrested. But the Jackson County prosecuting attorney declined to file charges against Jane Doe, and she was released around 24 hours after her arrest. They claimed the shooting was an act of self-defense. They pointed to a witness at the scene with professional medical training who told police that Javon, while in a headlock, was totally defenseless. The witness also said that Javon couldn't talk or breathe and was turning purple, and his eyes began rolling back in his head. The witness also believed that he heard Anthony say to Javon, "I'm killing you." The prosecutor's office further stated that Jane Doe begged Anthony to stop, but he continued. They are quoted as saying, "Once outside, the facts specifically demonstrate that the shooting female fired a single shot in defense of the man who was being strangled."
Now, this afternoon, Jackson County Prosecutor's Office made an announcement. I'm going to read directly from it. We grieve with the family and community over this tragic loss of life of Mr. Santi. Missouri law governs this case, specifically self-defense and defense of others, leading us to decline charges after a careful review. Anthony Santi, as I mentioned, was a firefighter. He lived in the Northland. He had a daughter, and he was buried last week.
Javon, on the other hand, was charged with 1 count of possession of a firearm by a felon. He had a previous conviction for armed robbery in Missouri. The community was very upset with the prosecutor for their failure to charge Jane Doe or Javon for Anthony's death. The prosecutor's office revealed that they had received several threats for their decision.
Breaking news this afternoon, the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office says it's being threatened after choosing not to file charges in a deadly shooting involving a Kansas City, Missouri firefighter. The office actually says numerous threats started this morning coming as phone calls that are racist and include threats of violence. Last week, the prosecutor, Jean Peters Baker, declined to press charges, saying the woman who shot and killed Anthony Santi did so in self-defense. Missouri state law allows the use of deadly force under certain circumstances.
Rest in peace to Anthony Santi.